Hi, my name is Kim Barthel, and I'm an occupational therapist, and I would love to introduce you to someone very important to me who has been my friend for over 30 years. Her name is Tracy Runions, and she is a massage therapist with many specialties. And it gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity to have a conversation with her about her work and the specialties that she brings in her work. So, good afternoon, Tracy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Hmm. Always love speaking with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your history as a massage therapist? How long have you been doing this? And what has been your journey?
That's easy. I've been a massage therapist for approximately 20 years now. I was in a completely different field before I decided to become a massage therapist. And we knew each other before I was a massage therapist. So you were part of this journey for me in that I have a son who was born with special needs. He's got some tactile challenges, and this introduced me to a whole group of other people who also had special needs. And I realized the power of touch just when most of us are infants and we don't even realize it, but touch makes a big difference when we're struggling and even when we're not. So this became more evident when I saw it presented in a person who had these challenges. Among other things, he, had communication issues, anxiety issues. There was a whole host of things that he faced on a daily basis. And I realized early on from watching interactions with his therapists and other doctors and people that were trying to help him what touch did. And then as a mother, you can see the difference. And all you have to do is lay your hands and you see the calming effect or the
Mm.
anxiety producing effect that can have. So
Mm.
I decided there's a much more purposeful way that I can contribute to not only his well-being, but everybody else's. And that was through touch. I became a massage therapist.
Well, I think of you and all the gifts that you have as more than a person with manual skills with your hands. One of the specialties that I love about you, as having been a recipient of your work, is a combination of your intense knowledge of anatomy and biomechanics of movement, combined with your intuition. Your intuition, both emotionally, cognitively, but also in your hands. I think, how you always seem to know exactly where to go and what the person needs. And that fits so nicely with the name of your company, Basic Needs. What the person needs in order for their structure to reorganize themselves. And I know that you don't like talking about how gifted you are, so I get the chance to be a little bit, doing that on your behalf, and want to emphasize that when people come to see you, they're just not getting your average massage therapist, in my opinion.
Well, thank you.
Hmm.
And yes, part of what I do involving touch does have to do with intent. And
Hmm.
we all have that on some level. Most of it is some subconscious, pardon me, in people. And handshake, that's a form of touch. And
Hmm.
people don't realize the power they have behind a simple handshake or pat on the shoulder. But yes, you're right. And as far as intention goes,
Hmm.
it's a very important part of touch.
Now, recently, well, I got excited for a second. Over the years, I've seen you broaden your knowledge and your perspective in so many different facets, from craniosacral understanding of fascia. Oh, your understanding of fascia, which I'm not sure that the general public always understands what fascia is. It's that white, sinewy material like you might see in your steak that lies between muscles and also between all of the organs in your body, and has such a profound interconnectedness to it, in how it holds us together. And when there are restrictions in fascia, the muscles are bound by that fascia. And this is something I have seen you think about, work on, and have a deep level of understanding about over many years. But recently, I know that you have become interested in something new, or at least newer to most of us, that we are using in my own home, called block therapy. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Block therapy is, well, just to go back to something you said before about the characteristics of fascia and what it does physically in the body and where it is and how it holds us together. It also holds other energies. It holds emotions. It holds thoughts. It has a consciousness all kind of all unto itself that is part of our bigger being and part of our existence. So working with the fascia is a very important part of a lot of treatments for a whole list of pathologies. So, you know, if you're treating something that you don't think there's really any progress being made, it's quite possibly due to the fact that the fascia piece is being left out, and you just need that one little piece and everything else can fall into place. So you're right. I've been working with block therapy for a number of years now. It was developed by an athletic therapist here in Winnipeg, Deanna Hansen, and they have been using cedar blocks for quite some time. I have one here. I think I have
too. Me too. I have mine too.
There's two different sizes. There's the block buddy and the block baby, which, you know, everybody's physicality is different. So sometimes the baby will fit in places that the buddy won't. And you being, how tall are you? 5? You're at least 5 feet. I know that.
Yes.
So
a little more.
But the concept is that it allows you to work on the fascia system yourself, and you don't necessarily need a professional to do it on a regular basis. Of course, if you want to consult with somebody, that kind of moves things along a little bit faster, and there's the opportunity to have somebody look at your fascia. It doesn't even have to be in person, but they can do a consult from a picture or online and then tell you what to do and how to do it and where to place the block. And it really just gives you the freedom to do the treatments whenever or wherever you happen to be. But the block is very close to the same composition or hardness of bone, which we, of course, have in our bodies. And it just helps you melt through whatever restrictions. So using the pain that you feel when you're on the block, which can be intense, it kind of helps people change their perception of pain and their reaction to pain, both, which is a good thing because we all have pain, we all have restriction. You can't be in a human form without having those. So you use the block to release the restrictions by following the pain. So you would find an area of restriction, which is indicated by pain. You breathe and use the block to heat the system, heat the fascia, have it melt through and release, as opposed to being kind of having an adversarial approach to the fascia and breaking it down or tearing and having it to rebuild and, you know, possibly injuring or having scar tissue. It's a very gentle way to release the fascia and have it use its own innate understanding and have the cells go back to doing what they're supposed to do. And
Fabulous.
you can do it, like I said, to your own level of tolerance. If you know, only want to feel the pain for just a short little while, you shorten the time span, or you can do it for hours. It can become addicting, I have to say.
That's what's happening in my home. I want to back up for a second because I first learned about fascia because I historically worked with children, still work with children, but worked with children with cerebral palsy who had tremendous amounts of restrictions in the way that they moved. And my teacher was John Barnes many years ago. I think you probably remember. And our conversations around fascia happened 20 some odd years ago. And I just want to say one thing that I feel is important, especially for the public understanding is, yes, I feel like this is really helpful at home, but it isn't, I wouldn't, even though I am a therapist, I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. I felt the need to have a coach. And what I can read the manual, and this is, Deanna has done a beautiful job. I can read the manual, I can see the protocol, but I know the individualization that's necessary for each person as a therapist myself. And so one of the things I've personally loved about working with you, and I live in BC and you live in Manitoba, is that you can look at my body sitting here right now on the camera. I know you are, and you can see where my restrictions are happening and where that block might benefit me. So, you know, even though it's not as hands-on, all of the other beautiful skills that you bring to this picture really enhance the quality of this technique, I think. As a matter of fact, I just shared your name and your skill set with a colleague of mine in Australia yesterday. And she is an individual with an autoimmune disorder with tremendous amounts of inflammation. And she invested in the block and in the block program. And she said, I really feel like I need a coach. So I feel excited about this protocol, but I feel more motivated and connected to it because of my relationship with you.
Well, thank you. And you're right. Some people, a lot of people do feel better having somebody guide them. And I do find it helpful. It helps people, especially you and I are therapists, and there's still that piece that is beneficial. So for people who are not familiar with any other modalities or therapies, or even their own bodies, because block does tend to introduce people to their own bodies. You can exist in it for 30, 40, 50 years, but not have an understanding of how it works. We know how the microwave works sometimes better than we do our own bodies.
That's so true, Tracy.
We don't always understand the reason for the equipment we're given.
It's so true. You know, I wanted to enhance one other thought that I had is around trauma and developmental trauma. I think, you know, my specialty in the world is the field of trauma and how it impacts the body. And I know that our fascia is our historical map of our life's challenges and our historical experiences. And so I remember myself last summer having a tear in my tensor fascia lata, and it was incapacitating. And, you know, the whole relationship we have with pain, physically and emotionally, you already talked about that, is such a difficult thing for most people. And so it would be very easy to just say, this is too hard. But when somebody can say to you, you know, just breathe for just a wee bit longer, and it's going to move, and you create that safety, I feel. around the intensity of the experience, because when you are activated, either emotionally or physically, you might not have the intrinsic capacity to stay with it. And that's another reason why I feel,
Having someone there as
yeah.
well, sorry to interrupt, but there's also the part of a lot of people in pain also feel alone. So, you know, when you have somebody by your side, you're not doing it alone. So,
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful.
When we were talking about pain and trauma and the ability to release it and block therapy, working with the fascia to give you the control over that, what I find is a lot of people are able to release their trauma, their past emotions, and their hurt without reliving it. You don't have to go through it again to let it go, and you can just completely let it go. Sometimes it takes some adjustment to realign with a new reality, and that, you know, when you've been carrying pain and frustration and whatever it is that's happened in your tissues with you for so long, that's your normal, and you are comfortable with normal. We're not so comfortable with change. So when it releases and we're able to just let it go without, like I said, going through it or reliving it again, we have the opportunity to readjust normal. And that takes a little bit of getting used to. But it's so much fun when you're having to get used to a new normal that is not as burdened as the one you just left.
Oh, absolutely. So I have a wee story I want to tell about you before we end this conversation. My brother-in-law was getting married, and Lisa, who is our daughter, would have been about 11. And she slipped. And this was in the United States. And she landed flat on her back and couldn't breathe and couldn't move. And I remember feeling absolutely terrified. So what did I do? I phoned my Tracy. And she talked us through, walked us through, supported our family so that we could, you know, get Lisa to be more mobile in the moment without having to experience the shock of the trauma. So I know that for me and for our family, anytime there is ever any kind of health-related challenge, you are my go-to person.